Cadillac CT6 is designed from the ground up to take on the segment-dominating full-size luxury sedans from BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, and Lexus. The CT6 is Cadillac's first full-size sport luxury sedan in the modern era. This is the Platinum-level CT6 Cadillac. It has a 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6, 8-speed automatic, all-wheel drive. And when I first saw it, I thought, this thing is huge. But at just around 4,000 pounds, it's actually lighter than a BMW 5 Series, 6 Series, and a Mercedes-Benz E-Class. The wheelbase falls in between the German flagship larger vehicles, usually designated by an L, and their shorter wheelbase models. And for those of you who like doing parking lot donuts, the turning radius on this is as tight as a CTS, thanks in part to the active rear wheel steering. Now this car wasn't meant to compete directly head-to-head with the 7 Series and the A8s and the other German big boys, but instead Cadillac wanted to come up with something unique, and I think they've done that. This Cadillac is full of some really great technological features. Things like heads-up display, active braking, and a lane assist, which I absolutely hate.
But that's really okay because we don't really expect these old guys to understand something like that. So let's take it for a ride.
The interior is pretty nice. They call it Opus leather, which I guess is some sort of leather. I don't really know what Opus is, but it feels extremely soft. It's much softer than you would feel in just the regular base model of the CT6. Cadillac labels this interior as jet black, which it's very black in here. But it also has some wood grain accents on the dash and some carbon fiber accents, which actually tie in pretty nicely. So kind of moving on to the sound in this car, that is something that is very extraordinary. This car has 34 speakers in it, 34, in 19 locations. I mean, most cars have like 6 speakers. This has 34. And of course it's Bose speakers, so they have developed a system called the Bose Pan-Array system, which you get as an option, which came with this Platinum CT6. Overall, the sound that you get from the 34 speakers is pretty amazing. Very, very, very little distortion at the max volume. One really cool feature is called night vision, which is exactly as it sounds. So once you're driving at night, you can configure the center speedometer, which is right in the center of the cluster, and you just by a touch of a couple of buttons you can turn night vision on, which is now in the middle, would be in the middle of your gauge cluster. And so the night vision shows you anything in the pitch black darkness that you can't see just looking through the windshield. The coolest feature of the night vision, I think, is the pedestrian locator, let's call it. So it points them out and it gives you a little notification that there's a pedestrian on the side of the road. Could be useful, you never know. I mean, I've had some close calls of pedestrians coming out in front of the street, so you have that, it notifies you. And even the car with the active braking will brake for you. So there's some cool technology that ties in together. The 360 camera is actually very nice and very useful. So if you ever see someone that's parked next to a curb at the CT6 or parked on top of a curb or crooked in a spot, I would suggest that you write them a note of encouragement to stop trying so hard, because it's pretty hard.
While Nick was talking amongst himself, I sprawled out and nearly fell asleep in the CT6's spacious backseat. Well, this vehicle is certainly fun to drive, but the real place to be is in the backseat. It is so roomy in here, I have to keep reminding myself I'm in a production sedan and not like, honestly, not like in a limousine. I mean, this thing is tons of room. Let me tell you about some of these features while I get chauffeured around a little bit.
Don't mind me.
So, first of all, this back seat reclines, which I know is a little bit more of commonplace now, but it's still very welcomed in the Cadillac with its, you know, this beautiful soft leather interior. The reclines to just like kind of a wonderful position. I have shades around me. You may be able to see there's a shade behind me to keep the sun off if I want it. There's a shade next to me to keep the sun off if I want it. But I also have a really great panoramic sunroof back here so I can clearly see the sky. My favorite feature of all is the massaging seat. So just with a touch of a button in the center console, you can get all different kinds of massages in the back of your seat. Right now it's kneading. There's also rolling pins that sort of go up and down. So it's really just sort of, to me, the height of luxury for driving around in the back of just a really nicely built sedan. In addition to that, there's a 10.2-inch screen that pops up out of the front seat to give me the ability to watch DVDs. It's also connected to the internet, so you can do things like connect to Netflix or Hulu, some of those other streaming services, and watch movies. I have my own Bluetooth headset that I can put on while I'm watching a show so that me and the other passenger back here can actually watch separate things without being disturbed by the mouth in the front trying to drive us around up there. Everything's going.
Don't worry about me.
Everything in the back seat is grand.
Performance of this car is actually quite surprising. It sounds good, first of all. With a 3-liter twin-turbo V6, you wouldn't expect really a good sound from it, but this has a nice throaty sound to it. The transmission that this thing is fitted with is the 8L90 transmission, which is the same transmission that's in the Corvette Z06 and the ATS-V, the CTS-V in sport mode. That gives you keeps RPMs up high when you're jamming around some corners and on the throttle, off and on the throttle. It does an upshift like you're driving around town, let's say. And it also has a rev matching feature, which is pretty cool for a Cadillac to have. I mean, before you would think this is an old man's car, but now this is something different. Now, along with the straight line 0 to 60, of course, there is the cornering on this car, which is also surprising. So, combined with the all-wheel drive and the 4-wheel turning, the magnetic ride control makes this ride very smooth. Not just when you're driving in touring mode, but in sport mode, going around the turns at high speeds. I feel like this car is something different than what it actually is. It feels much more like it's a smaller CTS, let's say, than it does a big old man sedan. I think as a flagship car, Cadillac is going in the right direction. We'll find out in the next few years if they come out with a longer wheelbase version of this car or a coupe version of this car, but for now, I think this is pretty good for their brand.
Let's count them. How many rainbow zebras fit in this trunk? 1,
2, 10 rainbow zebras. This one may have been harmed. So according to Cadillac, this trunk holds 15.3 cubic feet of cargo. What we need to know is how many Nicholases does that equal? Let's find out.
I think there's only one of me in here.
One Nicholas.
Woo! These trunks are a little hot.
Hot. It's pretty hot in here. But one Nicholas is probably about half of me. So
let's try it.
I don't even think I could. It's a decently sized trunk, but I don't think I could get in there.
Let me put the net down for you. Go ahead.
You're not going to see me get in there. I'm sorry.
Why? I could just drive you around, and then I could take you to the desert, and then I could.
That's probably exactly what would happen.
To a hole in the middle of the desert, and then
I gotta go.
Never see you again.